Well, for weeks there had been speculation, there had been lots of reports that a state of play from PlayStation was right around the corner. There was going to be some major announcements, and well, the event was quickly announced and it has already happened. We did indeed have a couple of nice announcements. I wouldn't really say this blew anybody away. I thought it was just fine as a state of play. Really, these state of play presentations the last couple of years have really disappointed me in many ways. I really do miss what they did, last generation when they announced so many games right at once. They were firing on all cylinders. This generation, not so much, but yeah, this state of play did have some nice announcements. We did see Astrobot free DLC announced. The Midnight Walk looks very creative, very interesting in my opinion. I thought Arcade Chronicles was a nice little surprise, although I'm still not clear what that game is necessarily going to be about. We did obviously see the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster that had been talked about for so long. I have mixed feelings on that just because I don't really care for the Horizon franchise overall. We did not see the rumored Days Gone remaster, though. That's rather interesting. Hell Is Us also looks very interesting with its gameplay, so there were some nice surprises within here. But the game that everybody is talking about is what closed out this show, and that was Ghost of Yotei, which is a spiritual successor, I guess that's what you could call it, a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, set 300 years after that game with a new protagonist. This time we're playing as Atsu, and it sets us out on a journey in the land surrounding Mount Yotei, an area filled with sprawling grasslands, snowy tundras, and unexpected dangers. And this game is releasing in 2025. And here we have the debut announced trailer for Ghost of Yotei. Very, very different reception with this versus Assassin's Creed Shadows. Already 128,000 likes versus about 4,000 or 5,000 dislikes. There's definitely a small portion of people that are upset that this isn't a continuation of Jin Sakai's story, which I think it's understandable. But I do have to acknowledge the story trailer here. The visuals are absolutely stunning. They are unmatched. I get that this is very similar to what we got already with Ghost of Tsushima, but they continue to build off of it, and I'm actually really excited to see the ways that this is improved over, Ghost of Tsushima. And as you can see, the comment section, just many absolutely in love with this. Imagine hearing about Jin as a legendary folktale quest. I really hope that's actually something that does happen with this game. I think I mentioned that earlier. Ghost of was the best idea to stick with. This way we can tell loads of different stories from different eras, showing pretty cool characters. And yeah, just a lot of people in love with this. Miyamoto Musashi is alive and in his prime in this time period. Imagine a fight with one of the greatest swordmen to ever live. Jin is literally a ghost now, rip, and they go on and on. Just very different comment section versus what we have with Assassin's Creed Shadows. And with this female protagonist, one of the most viral tweets right now on Ghost of Yotei is the fact that we should be seeing her get in the hot springs just like we had Jin in Ghost of Tsushima. That better be in the game. But it is worth mentioning, we talk about this later on in the video, but I did want to mention this specific detail of why they're not doing Jin Sakai a sequel to his story. It's the fact that they want this to be an anthology type series, so the next Ghost game would probably be a new protagonist as well. They said that they are in love with origin stories, they love new regions, new stories, new time periods, so that is why they went with this direction. And again, we'll talk more about this later on in the video. Ultimately, Sony had the opportunity to do the funniest thing possible, and they very much did it with announcing Ghost of Yotei, which has taken a lot of the steam and thunder away from Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is Ubisoft's take on feudal Japan, which is said to be launching in the coming weeks, although there's some indication we're going to be talking about later in this video that the game might be being pushed back to 2025, and/or Ubisoft is feeling some heat from the Japanese audience. Again, we'll dive into that a little bit later on. But as of late, Ubisoft has been struggling. This is a report from Insider Gaming. Ubisoft being pressured to go private as share prices continue to fall. They've been in a tumble as of late. Another report coming from IGN pretty much outlines the same thing. A small investor actually went at Ubisoft saying that at its current state, it's mismanaged and shareholders are hostages of the Guillemot family members, who obviously control the company, and Tencent, who takes advantage of them. Just lots of negative PR everything about Ubisoft has been falling apart as of late. And some of that has to do with Star Wars Outlaws, which underperformed from them. All the reports that have come about indicate that this game just did not sell as well as Ubisoft thought, and they also thought the reception surrounding this game was going to be a lot more positive, but again, that's not what happened. As you can see on OpenCritic, based on 144 critic reviews, it only has a 76, and that's just not great for a major franchise like this, and only 67% of critics recommending the experience. A lot of people just weren't interested in Decay Vess and this so-called open-world Star Wars game. I think a lot of people I think they're exhausted by the Ubisoft formula, and this didn't differentiate enough from what we've seen from them. And I think there is a scare with Assassin's Creed Shadows that people might be finally waking up and saying, you know what, I think I'll pass on this. And so far, pre-orders and everything that has come about, there's no real indication that there's a strong interest in Assassin's Creed Shadows, the same problem that Star Wars Outlaws was hit with. But it's not just Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows. The other franchises from Ubisoft have also been suffering. We saw X Defiant has been struggling with its player base. Seems to be some indication that Ubisoft might be shutting that down sometime in the near future. We'll see what happens, but it is also worth mentioning Assassin's Creed Shadows, the controversy surrounding this game, specifically its dual protagonist, one specifically I should say Yasuke, who is the black male lead protagonist in a feudal Japan setting. It's been controversial, and Japanese audiences have been vocal. It's been very divisive, as we have this article coming from Forbes. Japanese fans are puzzled that Yasuke is in Assassin's Creed Shadows, and the article brings up a couple of tweets from Japanese users. This has been on the forefront of the debate that's been going on through the gaming industry, the culture wars, which really has taken over of, games against DEI. That's what you probably see in the comment section of anything in regards to AC Shadows, and that is not going away at all, and it has not slowed down the months to follow. And Ubisoft has really done a piss poor job at managing all of this, especially when you go out of the way to say that this game is all about historical accuracy, and then you have to say, actually, maybe it's not. Again, they've just had some really bad messaging surrounding this game, and the Japanese audience have been very vocal about that. We actually saw that with the debut trailer. Before Westerners or anybody else came in, there still was a lot of Japanese users downvoting this trailer. And again, I'm not saying all Japanese people are against this game. It just seems to be very divided, and having a divided game this badly, Assassin's Creed Shadows, so many people against it, so many people for it, it's really a worst case scenario for a company. And again, the controversy has been in regards to not just Yasuke, but also some of the other historical issues surrounding the game, some of it in regards to its architecture. You got to understand, with a game that's already being looked at under a microscope, people are going to look at every single issue with this game. And when Ubisoft's talking about historical accuracy, when you have all these other issues that are mounting up, it just creates another bad image surrounding this game that Ubisoft really didn't give the care that they said that they did. As we have this article coming from Games Radar, following historical accuracy complaints, Assassin's Creed Shadows director promises the trailer's architectural inaccuracies will be ironed out for the RPG's launch. This was in regards to some of the architecture that looked more Chinese rather than Japanese. Again, just issues that mount up over time, as we also saw with the reenactment group, in which Ubisoft stole some of their flags for some of their marketing material, and Ubisoft, I guess, gave an unsatisfactory apology, which was pretty much just a statement on Twitter saying, "Oops-a-daisy, we didn't mean to do that." And again, all this controversy led to a petition, over 100,000 signatures, asking Ubisoft to cancel this game. We even saw politicians in Japan getting involved, asking for investigations to be made into the game over its cultural inaccuracies. This ultimately never went anywhere, but it just shows you the scale of the controversy surrounding this game. We even saw Elon Musk jumping into this, in which he said DEI kills art, which, again, if you needed fuel to an inferno, this is very much that. And we even saw Ubisoft having to respond to these claims. Again, this is PC Gamer's analysis of the situation at the time, saying on May 24th, Elon Musk decided to throw his opinion into the mess, replying to a tweet about the game with DEI kills art. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and is a policy that organizations can use to promote equal treatment and involvement of all people, especially people who are usually underrepresented. It wasn't actually a nuanced take, and this characterization is what you get from games media, which is not true at all. We have seen that other gaming companies have gone much further than equal treatment. You even have Activision. This was leaked a couple of years ago, but Activision Blizzard's new diversity game tool comes across terribly. It was terrible because they're basing characters on this little model, which again shows you how fixated companies are on being as inclusive and diverse as possible. It's inauthentic garbage, and I think a lot of people have rightfully called this out. Although the extent of this has gone way overboard, in my opinion, in which some people just look at any female protagonist, any black character, and they just immediately yell DEI, which I think is truly nonsensical. But this is the environment we live in now with the gaming industry, and I think everybody's just frustrated with how we've gotten here. But heading back to this article coming from PC Gamer, this is what a Ubisoft employee, one of the lead developers on Assassin's Creed Shadows, I believe, mentioned. He said that tweet generated emotions. The first thing I wanted to do was go back on X that I had deleted and just tweet back, said the developer. For me, Elon, it's sad. He's just feeding hatred. I had a lot of 3-word replies that came to mind, but he didn't reply to Musk. By attacking someone like Elon, I will not convince people about our point of view as a team. He didn't say that tweet, but he went to a gaming outlets talking about this. Okay. And then he did continue on saying, what Elon says is not the game we're building. People have to play the game for themselves. And if within the first 11 minutes and 47 seconds, they're not convinced of what we're doing, we can have the discussion. Again, we even saw Ubisoft, all of this controversy mounted to a point in which they actually had to put out a statement. And this is really where they should have just stopped talking. This is what they should have said from the get-go. But they eventually said this. It was a lengthy reply. I'm just going to get to the main part, in which they say, while Yasuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion. Again, one thing that Assassin's Creed Shadows does that no other Assassin's Creed game has done before is having the main protagonist portrayed as a real historical figure. And Yasuke, the history surrounding him, is something that is heavily debated, as it's mentioned here by Ubisoft. But the controversy surrounding this game, like I said, it has only continued. We even saw them running to the New York Times. There was an article in which they said, actually, Japan absolutely loves this game, which that's not true. It's extremely divided. But this article really didn't portray that perspective. It just tried to jump on all the isms and saying that Ubisoft was wrongly being attacked by a small portion of gamers for what they were portraying here in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And we even saw an executive producer admitting that Ubisoft is going beyond what is the accepted truth. The specific quote, again, coming from the same developer that was in that PC game article, saying, we want people to be passionate about history. What does that mean? Stay true to well-documented moments and historical figures, but not shying away from having a critical point of view and defying cliches to go beyond what is the accepted truth. And the latest controversy surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows is, well, this. And it's a Japanese individual who posted with this Google Translate saying, please spread the word Assassin's Creed Shadows, figures from Ubisoft, a famous Japanese hate and criminal company, Jesus. A figurine of a destroyed Torii Gate has been released, which is believed to be based on the one-leg Torii Gate that was destroyed in the Nagasaki atomic bombing. I've never seen a one-leg Torii other than the one destroyed by the American atomic bomb in Nagasaki. And I guess this is some sort of collaboration, toy collaboration that they're doing. Maybe this is like U2's or something like that. I'm not sure, but as you can see the little statue in the background that Neo, one of the other female lead protagonists in the game, she's sitting on right next to Yasuke, and yeah, I mean, it is a striking resemblance, and I have no idea how Ubisoft's marketing department didn't clearly look into this, but I guess that, again, it just adds up to a very negative reception towards this game and Ubisoft as a company. And the latest trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows, again, has just portrayed how negative people are towards this game right now. It's really that bad. 21,000 likes, 110,000 dislikes. This was 12 days ago. Ubisoft, how do you want the comments to be? Investor, yes. You guys noticing the pretty girl bots defending Ubisoft are all created a month apart. Imagine being a quadruple A company and needing to do bot comments. And it goes on and on. This is just as bad as it gets for a company. I've never seen so much anger towards a game pre-release like this. And I guess you could understand why Ubisoft is so worried about this game's launch, because they rely so heavily on Assassin's Creed these days that if AC Shadows sells a couple million copies short, this really could tank the company, and it really looks like the company is on the verge of collapse right now based on everything that we've seen. And yeah, these comments just totally brutal and going on and on and on. Very, very difficult to find any positive comments, to be fair. But the latest thing that has happened with Ubisoft is the fact that they actually had to cancel their appearance at Tokyo Game Show. Their game about Japan, they're going to have a presentation to a Japanese audience, and they said, nope, we're not doing that. And they didn't give an actual response about why this is happening. They just said various circumstances is why they canceled this appearance. Obviously, there's probably going to be some other games shown, but the main game was going to be Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I might remind you guys is supposed to be launching in November. And we did see, this is why I'm thinking that the game might actually have been delayed to 2025, probably to springtime, and it's the fact that they canceled all press previews of AC Shadows until further notice. I have never there's very few examples of a game being delayed this late into the game, but it's really making me feel like maybe Ubisoft is really that concerned that this game is about to bomb, and they want to get this game to the springtime to hopefully avoid the controversy that they're about to face. And I think some of that is in regards to Star Wars Outlaws and the poor reception it got and the underwhelming sales. They really have to be worried about AC Shadows, but I don't think, reception's going to change that much unless they really do a massive overhaul to the game. But here we have the follow-up to Ghost of Tsushima. This is not a spin-off, this is a full-on sequel or spiritual successor, depends whatever term you want to use, but Ghost of Yotei is coming in 2025. I would assume probably the fall time, but again, this is the worst case scenario. This is an absolute nightmare for Ubisoft, who's right now, there seems to be some indication that the company is toying around with the idea of pushing this game into 2025. Being just a couple of months away from this game is a worst case scenario, especially because Ghost of Tsushima was an extremely well received game, not just in Japan, but worldwide. It has a reputation. It is an evolution, in my opinion, of the Ubisoft formula, done spectacularly well. And Sucker Punch's latest adventure introduces a new ghost. This is the rather interesting thing about this game that not everybody is on board with. It's the fact that this is not a direct sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. We are not playing as Jin Sakai, but a new ghost. When we set out to make a new Ghost game, we wanted to maintain the core pillars established in Ghost of Tsushima, playing as a wandering warrior in feudal Japan, offering freedom to explore at your own pace and highlighting the beauty of the world. We also wanted to continue to innovate to create something fresh but familiar. We looked beyond Jin Sakai's story and the island of Tsushima and shifted our focus to the idea of the ghost instead. And that's how we got Etsu. I'm not sure if I'm even saying that right, but the female samurai, which there's many of them well documented in Japanese history. This one seems to be a tale of revenge. We'll get more on that in a second. But at Sucker Punch Productions, we love origin stories, and we wanted to explore what it could mean to have a new hero wearing a ghost mask and uncovering a new legend. This led us to Ghost of Yotei, a new protagonist, a new story to unfold, and a new region of Japan to explore. While we aren't diving into story specifics yet today, we can reveal that Atsu's journey takes place in 1603, more than 300 years after the events of Tsushima. Our story is set in the land surrounding Mount Yotei. In 1603, this area was outside the rule of Japan and filled with sprawling grasslands, snowy tundras, and unexpected dangers. It's a far cry from the organized samurai clans who lived in Tsushima, and it's the setting for an origin story we can't wait to tell. This is also Sucker Punch's first game built from the ground up for PlayStation 5. Ultimately, I actually think that first trailer looked fantastic. The visuals as Ghost of Tsushima look even better. It does seem like they're hinting at we're going to be able to have maybe a wolf companion alongside us. I think that's an interesting new dynamic. And there's also firearms. That is definitely a very big change from what Tsushima was all about. So I definitely feel like there's going to be major differences with this game, and some people are hoping that maybe this is a relative to Jin Sakai, maybe his legend lives on. I think that's a really cool thing that could happen here. And ultimately, I don't think that this closes the door necessarily on Jin Sakai ever having a sequel in the future. Maybe that's something they do revisit, but I do kind of like the idea, and it's growing on me as we talk about it, that this Ghost franchise is actually an anthology, and each new game has as a new protagonist. I actually thought Ghost of Tsushima was setting up the other female lead in the game, Yuna. I thought she was going to be maybe the lead protagonist of a sequel, so I'm not too surprised that they went in the direction of a female protagonist, and I don't necessarily have an issue with it, especially with the care and the fantastic job they did with Tsushima, but it is a rather surprising direction, I suppose. And there was actually some further context given here about the game's setting. Big time leap to 1603, which marks the very beginning of Japan's Edo era, the beginning of Japan's era of peace after finalizing the unification. Very popular area where a lot of the romance of the samurai got solidified, with notable people such as Miyamoto, Musashi, and William Angin Adams, aka the inspiration of Blackthorn from the book and show Shogun, being alive and active, and where the samurai class essentially went to a transition phase from being warriors to focus on arts, poetry, or banditry. The infamous Ronins, think like the Straw Hats from the previous game, but a larger scale. Not an immediate peaceful era though, skill skirmishes remaining that eventually culminated in the siege of Osaka in 1614 to 1615, but much more so than the previous Sengoku era. I do wonder if this is going to be more of a personal story, especially with the New York Times articles mentioning that this is kind of like a story of vengeance. Be interesting. This is also the time when the concept of ninja was much more well established and publicly conscious, and contrasted Jin in the previous game more or less acting as the proto-ninja. Notable, the Iki, a confederacy of ninja clans, was well established in the previous Sengoku era before getting absorbed in the Tokugawa shogunate, so Sucker Punch could potentially follow up with the ghost elements from said history. And then somebody far more educated than myself in Japanese history mentioning that Mount Yotei is referred to as the female mountain by the native Anu, so I'm wondering if this protagonist is a personification of the mountain the same way that Jin was a personification of the storm. And within the New York Times, they actually did talk about this sequel with them. Nate Fox and Jason Connell, creative directors in Ghost of Tsushima, had long envisioned a spiritual successor to the 2020 game, which is what we're getting with Yotei. They go on to say, when we started working on a sequel, the first question we asked ourselves is, what is the DNA of a Ghost game? Fox said, it is about transporting the player to the romance and beauty of feudal Japan. Inspiration for the new game setting came during 2 research trips into northern Japan. The Sucker Punch team, which mostly resides in Washington, visited more than a dozen locations, but it was the image of Mount Yotei reflected across Lake Toya that inspired awe. I sat there for 2 hours just staring at the mountains, Connell said of the active stratovolcano, which is similar in appearance to Mount Fuji. It was stunning. Fox said another highlight was Shiratoko National Park on the northeastern tip of Hokkaido, which he visited to record nature sounds for his audio team. Inside the park, you have to watch a video telling you about the dangers of bears. Being in this incredibly beautiful park with jagged cliffs and water, yet all the time being aware there were dangerous bears was electrifying. We strive to bring into the video game that feeling of danger. And now this is actually where we get some new details about the direction that Sucker Punch is taking with this game. They say, without going into detail, the developers said Ghost of Yotei was a story of underdog vengeance that followed Atsu as she moved through the natural landscape. They said players would have greater control over her story than in previous games. That's actually rather interesting. I do wonder if that means there's going to be some choices. You know, there is one big choice in Ghost of Tsushima towards the end, but it is mostly a linear story, I should say. One challenge that comes with making an open world game is the repetitive nature of doing the same thing over again, said Connell, noting that players would be able to master firearms in addition to melee weapons like the katana. We wanted to balance against that and find unique experiences. So again, just another way that this game is going to differentiate from Tsushima, which I really am excited for. And it is important to remember that these guys, they were made permanent ambassadors of the real island. That shows you how much Japan, specifically Tsushima, really appreciated and loved the game. And I really do trust this team to do justice with this experience. And I don't think just having a female lead protagonist automatically means DEI, which I've seen some people saying on Twitter and such. I think that's unfortunately just a reflection of the very toxic and very divisive culture war environment we now live in. But this is as bad as it gets for Ubisoft. I think that they really need Assassin's Creed Shadows to be a massive hit for them, but the divisive nature of that game has only continued on for the months since it was announced. And if this game does in fact get delayed to 2025, it's only going to continue on, and you're only going to continue to see these comparisons made to Ghost of Yotei, which right now looks like the all-star, looks like a fantastic experience that I truly am dying to see and to play, and hopefully we'll get some more details maybe at the Video Game Awards later on this year, or maybe we'll have to wait until springtime of next year, but it is definitely going to be the game that is overshadowing all conversation and everything that is released in regards to AC Shadows. Anyway, what do you make of Ghost of Yotei's announcement? What do you make of the recent state of play? Let me know down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.